Welcome to Tell Me About It, a podcast by SLPs for everyone. I'm Francie.
And I'm Maggie.
And we are here to demystify the big world of speech and language and communication.
This is our very first episode, so let's jump right in.
Let's get into it. So, we are both SLPs.
Yes.
What? Yeah, big shock. Big shock. We are not just SLPs, but we are also friends, and we are coworkers.
Yes.
We met. You want to take it?
Yeah, so we met, we both started working at the same elementary school. This is our third year working together.
Ooh.
So back in 2022.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Seems like yesterday.
Right.
And a million years ago. So we both started working at the same elementary school in 2022, and it was your first year out of grad school.
Oh, fresh, like ink on the
newly
birth
minted.
certificate.
Yeah.
Like, I was straight out of grad school. Yeah.
And I had 1 year of experience in early childhood. So we were both super new and had kind of just like, I think we kind of figured out how to be SLPs a little bit together.
Yeah.
But we met on like the second day of school or something because I was late.
Yes.
And there was a reason for that, but I was late, and we both had old lady names.
Old lady names.
Margaret and Frances.
Yes, because I know you were worried that I was an ancient, decrepit woman.
Yeah, I thought you were old. It's fine.
I am, but that's beside the point.
We're just old on the inside.
Truly. Yeah. And we both had ancient, decrepit names, and we both had sapphire rings that look like very similar. Not that you can see them from this distance, but that's okay. They're very similar. And so that was a big connecting point. And then from there, we've just been besties.
Yeah, we hit it off pretty quickly.
Friends.
At school, we are usually a unit.
Oh, at school, people think we're the same person.
In a lot of students' minds, we are the same person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they know that there's two of us.
For a long time, we also had the same hair color, which did not help us.
Yes.
And the same hair length.
Yes.
So.
And a lot of teachers, too, will get our names mixed up.
Still.
Which, honestly...
I love it.
It's fine. We have the same job and we are really similar in a lot of ways. So I get it. But yeah, it's been a joy to work together. And we've gotten to be like really close friends outside of school too, which is really fun.
But it's through our job that we decided to do this.
Yes.
Which is starting a podcast together about...
We love the sound of our own voices.
I'd love to talk.
Yeah.
First of all,
we talk a lot.
I say this a lot during IEP meetings, which is I will just keep talking until somebody stops me.
Yeah. Someone has to physically restrain me.
So we are starting a podcast. Why are we starting that podcast, Maggie?
Well, I think that in our time working together, we have both realized that there's a lot of things about, like in the world of disability broadly. So in the special education system and also in the medical system that are like needlessly confusing. Like there's no reason for these systems and processes to be as opaque as they are. And like, this is our jobs. We have done this every day for the last 3 years together, 4 years, and then also had 6 years of training in it beforehand. And we are still often confused by like what to do next, how to get funding, how to get a diagnosis, how to get services. Like we are often looking up like how to get stuff. And so for parents and caregivers, that process is that much more confusing, which is like nobody's fault.
It's just a symptom of a big system that is a little ineffective sometimes.
Just a little. Just a little ineffective sometimes.
We set out to help guide and provide information and just be a resource for this big mysterious world that we find ourselves in and love very dearly, which is speech, language, communication, special education.
Yeah.
It's big and broad and very confusing.
And we're both very passionate about this field, like very passionate about our jobs. And we realize that like speech pathology is not the most important thing in the world.
No, you often say, you're like, I have so much fun at parties.
I know.
We love language.
Yeah.
We love linguistics. We love sped process.
The fastest way to get me to like kill the vibe at a party is to ask me what I do for work, because then I'll be like, I'm so glad. Do you have time for a 20-minute lecture on how...
While you're a captive audience, I'm going to lecture you for an hour.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. Everyone loves linguistics as much as I do, right? Surely. Exactly. Take a seat. So yeah. And now, so we said, let's buy some podcasting microphones and
let's talk about it
and get out there. But no, it's, there's a lot of information out there. And even though like we think that our jobs are very important, and honestly, our jobs are pretty important for the people that we serve. Yes. We are in a good position to do a lot of good and to support in some very real ways. Even though we're not the most important member of the team, like we are still a member of the team for a lot of people with disabilities.
Yes. And I also feel like as communication professionals, we also have an extra responsibility in communicating about this process too.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
Thank you, Maggie. We have an extra responsibility because we have a greater understanding and also have an advanced understanding of communication too, to take that next step and really ensure that everybody is on the same page when it comes to care for our client or or a student or whomever.
Something that I hate, and it makes me feel guilty and embarrassed every time this happens, is if I'm sitting in an IEP meeting or something with a caregiver and I am suddenly realizing, to my horror, they do not know what's going on. No. And it is not their fault.
And it's not their fault.
If you have ever been that caregiver, it is not your fault that you don't know what's going on. You don't understand the terms being used or why we are even in the room. A lot of these systems, people, especially parents with kids that get diagnosed really young, kind of get thrown into the special education system. And then professionals, we have our own jargon-filled language, and we just kind of do our thing, get the ball rolling, and very seldom do we actually stop to explain what's going on in a way that's helpful. And so I just feel sick when I'm sitting in these meetings and I'm realizing someone has dropped the ball very multiple times sometimes. And sometimes it's me who dropped the ball, and try to take that opportunity to pick it back up again, but
re-explain. Too often we have found over the past several years that parents are, while included in the SPED process, are getting just left out or just taken along. And I know it's important to us that parents feel empowered, and by finding, or one of the best ways to feel empowered about something is by knowing about something. And so
absolutely,
that's why we're here. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So,
additionally, we have both noticed that there are a lot of disorders and communication differences. I guess, just broadly speaking, neurodivergence is having a moment on social media right now.
As she should.
Rightly so. She absolutely should. However, with that comes a lot of misinformation. And so there's a lot of, I'm not, this is an aside, I'm not crystal clear on what the difference between mis and disinformation is. But I know that they're both.
Okay, linguistic brain.
Well, I've heard both terms, and I've heard people use them
interchangeably.
No, separately. And so I'm there must be a difference. I don't know what it is.
I'll be real with you. Couldn't tell you.
Both of them are wrong. They're false. I guess. So either way, there's a lot of probably mis and disinformation about neurodivergence. Specifically, I would say autism and ADHD right now. And on the one hand, while I love that these communities are getting the spotlight and are getting the attention that they deserve, there's also a lot that's circulating that is just straight up not true and has the potential to harm
the next word
people in that community.
We're going to be harmful.
And that's not good. So we wanted to use our expertise as speech therapists and people who do work with this population a lot, to kind of just speak to that misinformation.
to be a measured voice in a sea of a lot of voices.
Yes.
Because while we ourselves are not a part of a neurodivergent, the community, we are tangentially related to them. And so I think, I don't know what the point was I was going to make.
Are you saying neither one of us really identifies as neurodivergent?
But we work with a lot of neurodivergent folk.
Yes.
And I think as professionals, we also have a responsibility to platform their voices and also make sure that we are protecting our students.
Right. Yeah. Misinformation or disinformation, or both of them, don't help anybody. So I think kind of hand in hand with that, we've also seen that shocker, there's not a lot of nuance online in online discourse.
No.
The internet is an amazing place.
Wonderful. Love it. Would not want to have it, or would not want to be without it.
No.
However, things are very black and white.
Yeah.
And for our field, which deals with disability is a huge grayscale. And so
Yes.
I think having a very measured and nuanced voice to talk about things that are confusing and big and important is valuable.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, totally agree. Things that are polarizing are fun
and
get a lot of clicks and views, but adopting that polarized attitude into your clinical practice, I do not think is a good idea.
Personally, I don't.
Yeah, I think that there are some things that we absolutely have to take a hardline stance on, for sure, but there's a lot of stuff that it's kind of like, well, let's think about this particular situation. Let's think about this specific client and what they want, right?
Yes.
And so not everything is as black and white as sometimes the internet would make you believe.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I even I don't know, I still feel icky saying that sometimes, because I do think it's important to take a stand.
Oh, big time.
And if you know me in real life, you know that I am hot-headed. If there's one thing that I love to do, it is find a hill to die on, baby. That's what I want. And so it is, maybe this is I don't know, I hope it's growth. Could it be growth? Could it be growth? To find myself saying whoa, let's take a step back here. But it is very needed, because these are real people's lives that we are affecting, and that other clinicians are impacting as well. And teachers, doctors, nurses, social workers,
OTs, PTs,
friends of, parents, caregivers, siblings of, if you know someone with disability, you are touching their life in some way. And so it's important to be, I guess, careful and compassionate about the impact that you're having.
What?
So, yeah. Okay, so what are we going to talk about on this podcast?
We are going to talk about this big, broad world. But specifically, I know we're going to talk about disorder-specific content.
Yep.
I know we're going to talk about misinformation and disinformation, scams and swindles that occur that target vulnerable people within our field, because though we are healthcare adjacent, we are not immune to grifters, ?
Absolutely. And you would think speech language pathology is a pretty small field. There's only 200 something thousand SLPs in the United States. It's not big. And yet we somehow there's a lot of snake oil out there.
Oh my gosh.
And things that are just not based in evidence, not based in research.
Which is, fun fact, the reason why this is a totally aside. We can
go no.
That's the reason why we have C's in the first place. Did you know that?
I did. I think you told me this.
That's the whole reason why we had C's in the first place, is because anybody could be a speech therapist.
Okay, so there wasn't any kind of
there's no standardization.
Regulation.
Yeah, there's no regulation and standardization. So the C's were created to be that. Anyways, that's a whole different topic. But.
Yeah, that's needed though. Yeah, you can't just go around saying that you're something that you're not.
No.
So yeah, we will be talking about scams and swindles and misinformation.
And one thing that you and I are both passionate about: research.
Yes.
Evidence.
Yes.
And the dissemination of that information in a responsible and understandable way.
Yes. Science communication. You said that really well.
Yes. Kind of like my job is language.
I did. Yes, science communication is so important, especially now. We have an amount of access that to information, just freely available information, heretofore unthought of.
Oh my gosh.
And if you are just a regular person, as most people are, you haven't spent a whole lot of time reading research and interacting with scientific literature. And for better or for worse, we have at least a little. Read many a research paper, did some work in research labs and stuff too. So we have a small, but
we at least have exposure to what it means to critically appraise research. Because that was, I don't know if you had to do this in grad school. We got the absolute crap kicked out of us with research articles. They would give us a research article, and then we'd have to do something called an article appraisal, where we...
I did not have to do this. Unless you blocked it out, which is possible.
We'd have to do article appraisals, so we would have to go through the entire article see what journal it came from. Is that journal one that is reputable? Where did they get their resources from? Are their sources
where the money
reputable?
come from?
Where the money come from? And then like grade that based off of like its evidentiary value.
Oh my God,
I've done a lot of that.
That's a really useful.
It's so useful,
task.
Which once again contributes to why we're so passionate about it. Is because I've had to do this. I cried over this several times. As
grad school. Yeah.
And so, but that was a really hard process for me to learn how to do, and I could not imagine going into like having the Library of Alexandria in your pocket, and then not being able to look at those things with a critical eye, just because you don't have the experience of it. Like I paid a lot of money to be able to do that.
Yes.
And so we want to be able to share that with people who don't want to go to grad school to be able to do that.
Right. Well, and what's more is that it's not even just that like we're so special and smart and we know how to read research because we're so amazing. It's that a lot of information is put out there with a specific agenda or bias.
Oh, yeah.
To get read and to get people to form an opinion quickly so that they can like post more about it on social media and get more eyes on it. Like putting on my tinfoil hat here for a second. I feel like I'm talking like a conspiracy theorist, but like this is how social media works.
Now information is becoming a like a product. And so how can you, much like I judge myself at the grocery store whether I want this type of spaghetti or this brand of spaghetti, we need to be able to also critically appraise the information that we are consuming online. So,
and another thing about data and evidence, now I really am like putting on that tinfoil hat. You can make data and evidence say a lot of things based on what you leave out, what you include, how you present that information. You can make data say a lot. Not whatever you need it to. No. But like there is a point at which you just have to lie. But there you can make evidence look like something.
Yes.
And so unless you are a person who knows what you're looking for, it's really hard to like parse apart.
Yeah. It gets me sometimes still.
Oh, it absolutely gets me too. Yeah. I got girl by some stuff. So that's a very important thing too. So we will be talking about some applied statistics.
And let me tell you,
and
let me be the first to say, I love me some research. I love me some data.
Me too.
I love me some evidence.
Yeah.
And so, but it is a skill in and of itself.
It is.
To be able to do
Absolutely it is.
And so, wow. Yeah. Research data.
Yeah. And going back to like we're not fun at parties anyway.
No.
We might as well, we might as well launch into.
I be very clear about that. My interests are all regards.
We've got old lady names, old lady attitudes. I want to be in bed by 9.
No, girl. 8. Like, I'm done.
You said 9? You party animal.
Oh, my goodness. So, if it isn't clear, we love our jobs.
Yes.
And I would love to know, because I actually don't know how you got into the field.
Yeah.
Please enlighten me.
Yes. Okay. So, I think I have told you before that I don't think I've told you the story, but I have told you before that I didn't really know what a speech pathologist was until my senior year of high school. So I had like a working knowledge of what a speech therapist kind of was. Like I knew that they existed. And then my senior year of high school, I was looking at colleges. I think that I had already decided to go to Mizzou, go Tigers. I think I had already decided that, but I had no idea what I wanted to study. And I've always been like a very kind of like fine arts kiddo. Like I did theater, I did choir and music, and I wanted to be an actress for a really long time, an actress and a singer. And then I thought maybe I wanted to study English, I wanted to study theater or communications or something I didn't really know. Linguistics was in there for a while, but then there was also a part of me that was like, maybe I should be a nurse, because I've always loved like medicine too, and like science I've always really enjoyed. So I had no idea, and I think my mom was terrified that I was going to pick a major that's frankly really hard to get a job in. I have a lot of friends in theater and like in the arts, and it is tough. Most of them are slaying and doing amazing, and that's awesome, but they've worked really hard to get there. So my mom I don't know who put the bug in her ear about it, but she literally walked into my bedroom one day after school and handed me a packet of papers and was like, this is the communication science and disorders major at Mizzou. Yeah. I think you would be good at this. You should read it. Okay. And so I like kind of skimmed the packet and I was like, you know what? Like this checks a lot of boxes for me. Like it's working with people. Check. I want to do that. It's got the science side of it. Check. I want to do that. And then also like the language piece. Like I've always been really interested in language. So I was like, okay, yeah, like, you know, what the heck, let's just do it. So I literally declared it like going into school and just like never looked back.
So we have very similar stories because I am very similar in that I am extremely, you know this about me, I am very particular and like type A-ish, type A minus, that's how I quantify myself.
Which, and I will say that's common among
so common amongst
SLPs.
Yeah.
We are, as an aside, we'll probably get into this later. Mm-hmm. SLP, like speech language pathology, is a very homogenous field. We're
all kind of same, like replicas of each other. And yes, for better or for worse, oftentimes for worse.
Yeah.
We are all very similar people.
Well, we're like almost 90% white.
Oh yeah.
Or almost 80% white and almost 90% female. So it does, at this point, it's kind of calling to a certain
demographic
profile. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which again, not great.
Not great.
Bad, actually. But we will talk about that later. Yes, type A minus.
Yeah, type A minus, where I'm good with letting things go, but I am a planner, I'm an organizer, and so it was my junior year of high school, and I was on vacation, and I knew loosely that I was like, I want to do something with neuroscience, but I really don't want to go to med school, because I just don't have the bandwidth for that.
I don't have the math skills for that.
I don't have the math. Girl, I don't have the math skills for that.
I couldn't have gotten in.
That's like a big reason why I picked this field, is because I don't have the math skills for that. I want to do something brain related, didn't really want to do medicine, wanted to do something with linguistics, but I knew that like linguistics as a field in and of itself has like very narrow job opportunities.
Yes.
But I love linguistics, and so was considering something like that, and I love special education, but I didn't want to be a teacher. And I was on a family vacation in Florida one Christmas, my junior year of high school, and I got a Forbes article, like I was quite literally scrolling on Facebook. And it was like a recommended article from Forbes that was like, here are 20 of the most emotionally and financially rewarding careers that you can have. And SLP and speech language pathology was like number 12.
I do think financially is interesting. But
financially was a choice. When I tell you, now that I'm in the field, I was like, Forbes, what the heck?
Talk about scams and swindles.
Scams and swindles. Because
I was lied to.
Let me tell you, not truthful, that's for certain. But and as I was reading the description of what a speech language pathologist does, I was like, oh, that is everything I love rolled into a career.
Yeah.
And so I had applied for Rockhurst University in Kansas City, and also like declared immediately.
Yeah.
And since then, I have not looked back. And
I really didn't. Like I got into school and I don't know, for better or for worse, I like never explored another major.
I didn't either. And like several times I had friends who like changed majors like 4 or 5 times. Right. And I would look in the mirror and I'm like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, are you too set on this?
But I like never thought about anything else.
No.
Really. Mm-mm. Which is, well, okay, that's actually not fully true. I did think for a while, actually there was like a very short period of time where I was thinking like, what if I did go to medical school? And then I kind of woke up and I was like, that is just not for me. Doctors are amazing.
Love them.
Med students are awesome. I do not have that specific set of skills.
Yeah.
My specific set of skills is much more suited to the job I'm in, not being a doctor. And then I also did momentarily contemplate double majoring in linguistics.
I double majored in psychology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you know.
Linguistics is interesting, and Mizzou has a good linguistics program.
They do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it is kind of like the more languagey, like research-ish part of, there's a lot of overlap, obviously.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of overlap. We're very applied linguistics.
Yeah. So I thought like very briefly about doing things tangentially related to this, but I never thought like, maybe I should get a business degree. Like I just never really.
It's always been this for me.
Yeah.
And that has proven to be the best choice for me because I love this job. I am so grateful to go to a job that I feel so like what is the word I'm trying to say? I feel so fulfilled by. I love what I do. I love the relationships I've developed with the kids. I love the school schedule. Let me be real.
The schedule's a big draw.
Big draw.
Big draw.
But I have so much fun.
Yeah.
Like every day is a great time. There's not been, honestly, any days in the past 3 years where I've been like, you know what, I don't really want to go to work because I have fun. We have a lot of whimsy in speech.
There's a lot of whimsy.
In pediatrics, we have a lot of whimsy.
Yes.
I enjoy that.
I was even saying to a teacher the other day, I was like, I don't think I've ever been bored in this job.
Never.
And like, that doesn't mean it's always fun, but I'm never bored. There's always something going on.
That's an important distinction. That's a good point. There are parts of it that are not fun, but it is never boring.
Yes. The parts when I have to lock myself in my office for 8 hours and do all the paperwork that I'm backed up on are boring. I will say that.
Truly.
But working with our students is never boring. And we do get to have, like, especially the students that I've worked with for the whole time I've been at the school now, like, we have a really strong therapeutic relationship.
Yes.
And like, yeah, I just love those kids, man.
I love those kids, man. We have so much fun. Oh, they are so good.
But yeah. Oh, okay. So I know that you love this job, and I also love this job, but is there anything like specifically that you love about it? Like a specific aspect or?
I am somebody who is so social, which is funny because I'm actually introverted, but
same.
I love talking. And so one of the things that I just love about this job is the true human connection that I get with other kids or with kids and with other professionals. So much of our job is about humanity. Because language is one of those things that is a uniquely human experience. And that is something that is so special to me that I get to experience every day.
Yeah.
Is the joy of connecting with other people. And so,
we have a very like human job. Like we work with people, we ourselves are people. But like I do think that a lot of what SLPs do, working on communication and feeding, not us specifically, but other SLPs do feeding therapy too.
Oh, gosh.
Like food and communication are like two of the biggest parts of the human experience.
Yes.
And so I think that we just have like a very human job, which is cool. I too am an introvert. And so it is tough sometimes to be on all day and be like around people.
Yeah.
Or like be in a circus sometimes where I'm like, okay, Miss Johnson's overstimulated. I'm going to my office. But I think that's one of the things I like about it too. It's just like the humanness of it. It's nice. I do also, opposite of that, I do also like the analytic part of it. I love diagnostics. I love like diagnostic report writing, like getting to the bottom of something.
You love technical writing.
I do. And it is because...
Add that to the fun at parties list.
Girl. I do like technical writing. And I think it's because that was something that like, I think is one of Mizzou's strong suits.
Yes, I would agree with that.
As a grad school is they said before you leave here, you will know how to write a report. Dang it. Like, and boy, did we. So yeah, that was something that I think we just trained specifically in, but I actually now, joke's on me because I like it. So,
I will say it is like, oftentimes, it's a brain exercise. It's very like, how can I untangle this knot of like symptoms that I see?
Yeah.
Well,
and differential diagnosis, like
fun.
Figuring out specifically what is going on is important because it's great to have a broad picture. But like when you have all the puzzle pieces of like, okay, here's the student's early life history. Here's their kind of backstory, right? What brought us to the present day at school? What is going on right now? What are they struggling with? What are they strong with? And kind of what is their profile? And like putting all of those pieces together I feel like a little detective. Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of fun.
And like being able to describe the whole picture of a person in order to, like, not just to do it, but like in order to get them the best support possible. Because if you're missing pieces, you might be missing supports too.
Yes.
So I don't know. I love that. I feel like you were like, I love the human piece of this. And I was like, yeah, totally. And I also love the robot piece of this. I really, which is true. Like two things can be true at the same time.
Absolutely.
Nuance. So I liked both of those things a lot.
So we specifically get to figure out, talking about the analytical piece, we specifically look at schools because we are in education. But SLPs can be found everywhere.
Yep.
And so there are people in almost every place who are doing what we do.
You told me about corporate SLPs yesterday, which I did not know existed until yesterday.
Well, that was something that we talked about in grad school because I don't know, it came up one day and it's always stuck in my brain, and it is like a really it's a part of our field.
Yeah.
SLPs can be found everywhere, including corporate businesses. SLPs who are corporate do and we'll get into parts of language later.
Yeah.
But they specifically work on like professional correspondence and professional language, as well as, this is crazy, public speaking skills.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, that makes sense.
Accent modification. They do accent modification too, which in my mind is like the med spa of like speech pathology, where it's not medically necessary, but if you want it, it's there.
If you want it, it's there. Yeah. And that is like, it's true. Accent modification can be really useful. It can be a useful tool for people, just to be understood better by their peers. So
SLPs are everywhere. We work birth to death.
Yep.
We work in homes. We work in hospitals. We work in schools. We work in corporations.
We're everywhere. We are inevitable. You cannot escape.
You can't escape.
I'm just kidding.
You can't escape SLPs.
Yeah. But yeah. But yeah. So it's a really broad field. There's a lot to talk about, and we love to talk.
We love to talk.
So what are some things that our audience can expect to hear about from us on this podcast?
Oh, so much. Buckle up, folks.
Buckle up.
What you can expect to hear is hopefully a lot of nuanced conversation about really big topics. I keep saying big, but truly they are.
I think just complicated. Because we've talked about the humanness of this job.
Yeah.
And we've talked about some of the complexity with like differential diagnosis and that kind of thing. So putting those things together, a lot of topics in this field do end up being really complex. And it's not just treatment is not just a one size fits all.
No. And
even talking theoretically about things, there's always like a, but what if,
and there's always an outlier. There's always, something that's just on the outside. And so I know that we both really enjoy going back to things that we enjoy about our field, making very individualized treatment plans and viewing children very much as themselves. And I think that
as a one of one.
I think that is something that you can expect from this podcast is perspectives on complex issues with a good amount of individuality and like, nuanced takes.
We're going to try at least.
Yeah. That's the hope. Jeez.
It's the hope. But yeah.
What else can we expect?
I would love for us to bring in some other people too to get a better picture. We've kind of touched on this before, but we are two like neurotypical white females, and so the word female icks me out. I'm going to say that it grosses me out. I'm sorry. We are two neurotypical, able-bodied, for the most part, white women, and so having a different perspective on this field, a different perspective on disability, on research, on science communication, health literacy, all of the things that we've already mentioned is going to be vital because we are just able to speak on like one sliver of this.
Very small sliver of this.
So cool, which, it's our sliver.
It's our sliver, and I love my sliver.
I love my sliver, but there are other slivers.
It's important to consider those.
Absolutely. It is necessary to consider those. Right. Exactly. So yeah. If there are other topics that are interesting, comment, let us know,
please.
Because there is a lot to talk about. Like language touches everything that we do.
Yes.
And yeah, we like to talk a lot, so we can get into the weeds as we need to. But we can also, every once in a while, SLP stuff will pop up in pop culture and be kind of like have her moment in the limelight. And those things are really fun and interesting to talk about too. So
I also think one thing about an SLP that's important is that disability is just part of the human experience, going back to humanity. And so one of the reasons why I think our field is so important is because disability just happens. Like it's just part of it. And so you're either born with it or you live long enough to develop one. And throughout that whole process, hopefully there will be an SLP with kindness and compassion to help support your language and your communication through that process.
Yeah.
So anyways, love SLPs.
That's the hope. Love SLPs.
Okay, so with that, what is an SLP?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so we have talked a lot about SLPs pretty presumptively so far, because what the heck even are we? Something I do want to note, because I do get this question like in real life a lot, is there are some interchangeable terms for SLPs. So you may have heard an like SLP or a speech language pathologist, a speech pathologist, a speech therapist, and one that we get at school a lot is the speech teacher. Some SLPs feel really strongly about that. I don't care. I really don't care.
I don't have the time to explain the difference to a child, so like
that. Well, and that's the thing, and like
it doesn't bother me.
Personally, I don't care if the kids call me a speech teacher. I have a student that right now just calls me speech.
He is
not aware of my actual name, and that's fine.
That's fine.
I remind him, but a lot of kids call us the speech teacher, or teachers will say like, "Oh, go see the speech teacher," you know, or the speech teacher's here. That's fine. I do want caretakers or caregivers, not caretakers. That seems so like like a caretaker of a museum or something. But I do want caregivers to understand our job and what we are, because like, why are we working with your child?
Oh yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I'm an adult who's working with your kid. I really want you to know who I am.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, those terms are all pretty interchangeable for a speech language pathologist.
Two terms that are also interchangeable that I hear interchanged a lot that actually aren't interchangeable: speech and language.
Ooh, yes. Absolutely.
Something that is interesting about this field, we do both. But those are two totally separate processes.
Yep.
They do touch. They do overlap.
Oh, a lot. Yeah,
but
for sure.
But they're different.
They're distinct. Yeah. I like to explain speech as just like the literal sounds that you are making with your mouth.
Yep.
And that's about it. That's about where it stops.
That is speech. Yeah. It is the motor process of how we make the sounds.
Yeah.
That we say.
Yeah. It is. Oh my gosh. And this is like, I'll remove this if it's like too in the weeds about it, but a pet peeve of mine recently has been reducing speech to just a motor task. Because it's not just, and that's where the overlap comes in. Like, even though speech sounds are the literal sounds that we make,
the movement of our articulators and all that,
it is with the intent of speech, and that like it does bring in the language areas of the brain as well.
Oh yeah, no.
Just as much as the like kind of fine motor cortex. So like,
agreed.
Yeah, that's my latest SLP is speech being reduced to just a fine motor task when it's really not.
I agree with that, because speech and language are not mutual. Like they're not. They have to exist together.
They do. Yeah.
Well, speech has to exist with language. Language doesn't have to exist with speech. But that's a different story.
Yeah. Great clarification.
Let's be real.
Yes.
Hold please.
Yeah. Because that's absolutely true. But yeah, language.
Oh, that's a big
harder to define. Would you like to define language?
I can give a crack at it.
Take it away.
It is a much more kind of nebulous thing. It touches everything.
Yeah, it encompasses a lot.
Oh my gosh. Technical definition, there are 5 areas of language, which include phonology, which is that speech component. It's the sounds that we make that are part of a language. Morphology, which are the smallest units of sounds that change the meanings of words.
Yeah.
Right? And then with morphology is syntax, which is the way that we order words together. And the two of those things make grammar.
Yeah. I think that's what like most people think about as like grammar.
Yes. I would say that most people don't. Once again, fun at parties. Most people don't think about the distinctions between word order and also the things that we attach to words to change their meanings.
Yes.
But those are the two components of grammar.
Yeah. The smallest unit, morphology, the smallest unit of meaning, right? Okay. Yeah. The smallest unit of speech that carries meaning.
Yep. And so
the smallest unit of language that carries meaning.
Language.
I'm even doing this myself.
Look at this. This is why we're talking about it. So those two together kind of make up kind of. They do
make up grammar. Yeah.
From that is the next area of language is semantics, which is, once again,
simply put, vocabulary.
Simply put, vocabulary. More deeply put, the network and the relationship between all of the words that are stored in your brain.
Yeah. Like the categories.
Categories. Things that are connected. Yep. How our brain files the language that we have.
Yeah.
And the last area of language is pragmatics, or how we use all of the aforementioned things socially.
Yes. Pragmatics is a fun one.
I like pragmatics.
Yep.
It is, how we use language for social purposes. And all those things make up this beautiful nebulous creature called language.
Yeah. And language, you mentioned it before, language does not have to involve speech. There's a few great and like readily available examples of this. Sign language does not involve speech, but it is still language.
Still a language.
Written language, reading and writing, does not involve speech, but it is still language. And even stuff like emojis. Yeah. Emojis are coming to have their own linguistic meaning. Not hieroglyphs. I feel like this is something in college a lot. People would be like, oh, you do speech and language. Do you think that emojis are going to become hieroglyphs? And I would be like, no. I don't think that.
Here's my buzzkill statement. They are actually just like modifiers and inflectional cues.
Yeah, they're basically grammatical markers at this point, which the title of this episode is going to be like, who are we and why are we not fun at parties? Unless
the worst party guest in SLP.
Yeah, unless it's a party of people who just want to talk about language.
Yes.
Like a linguistics convention. We would fit right in, I think.
Truly.
Yeah.
So that is, in a nutshell.
Yeah. So we touched on speech. We touched on language. Pathology.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is your favorite part.
This is my favorite part. Yeah. So like, we are experts on speech. We're experts on language. And we know a lot about the typical development of those processes. But where the real work comes in, the real like meat of it comes in is with the pathology part. So that is kind of diagnosing and treating when speech and language breaks down, and giving support to those individuals so that they can communicate in a robust and meaningful way, whatever that looks like for them, because it can look a lot of different ways. So as SLPs, we have to be knowledgeable about speech and language, but we also have to be creative problem solvers.
Oh my gosh.
And be working, because we're working with people who are truly one of a kind, just like every person is, right? But like
speaking to the humanity of it. I mean, this is, what we do is truly tailored to one human's experience.
Yep, absolutely.
And so in finding out those quirks about them, or the quirks about their language or their communication styles, sometimes even their bodies for communication, is the pathology part of that job, of our job.
Yep.
And so all of those things make up the beautiful world that is speech language pathology. However, there are some things that SLPs do that don't fall under that title.
Yes.
And you mentioned it earlier with feeding.
Yeah.
So not jobs otherwise, or what is it? Responsibilities of not otherwise specified or whatever.
Yeah. And this is a fair one. Like this, if you are a parent of a child who has a feeding disorder and a person rolls up to your house or in the clinic and is like, hey, I'm the speech language pathologist, I'm here to work on feeding. Personally, I would be like, why? Like, it's
not in your name.
It's not in the it's not in the title. And also, what does speech and language have to do with feeding?
Yeah. We have an advanced knowledge of everything from the diaphragm up. I mean, we, to be a speech pathologist, it is an undergraduate degree and a master's degree. So we spend 6 years studying from the diaphragm up. Yep. And so we do have an advanced knowledge of our throat and the feeding process. And so that is why we are involved in that. But beyond that too, and I hear a lot from my friends who work in adult settings too, they work in cognition. And so oftentimes they will show up to somebody's inpatient room being like, hi, I'm the speech pathologist. We're here to work on memory. And they go, I don't have a problem with talking.
Yeah, which again,
why are
fair.
You here?
Yeah.
So
what are we doing there?
It's not in the name. And so there are things that SLPs do that aren't necessarily in our title, but are still.
They're tangentially related, and having the language and communication piece of those things is really helpful in treating those differences or disorders. Feeding and CogCom are more like specialized.
Very specialized.
Yeah. And so like an SLP in the NICU, that's a pretty specialized position.
Yes.
So that person has probably worked with that population of very young infants or premature babies for a while, or has had at least like a supervisor in that field. So they've gotten some sort of like more specific training.
Yeah, coming out of grad school, we are generalists.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of through life that some of us become hyper specialized. For example, NICU SLPs. Hats off to y'all, because they,
and that's not something that either one of us could just like jump on into. No, we would need at the very least to brush up on NICU feeding and do some more like continuing education in that area, like bare minimum, before we would be able to step into a role like that. But and I think in our current roles, we're both still pretty generalish,
but we do have areas of interest. Things, we have burgeoning areas of interest. Like I feel like as we have become more seasoned clinicians, we have things that like are piquing our interest to become more specialized in.
For sure.
For me, I'm very fascinated by AAC, or alternative and augmentative communication. And it's been really fun these past 3 years to learn more about the different systems that exist, strategies that exist, how to implement it in a way that is kind, respectful, and effective. And so for those who are unfamiliar, AAC is like broadly using means other than verbal speech to communicate. I think people most commonly think of like Stephen Hawking using like a speech output device, but it doesn't have to be like a speech output device. It can be gestures. It can be some type of combination of sign language and icons, or
I hesitate to call sign language AAC because it's not, it's its own language. It's ASL American Sign Language is its own language, so that would not technically be considered AAC because it's a language.
It is a language. It's a certified language.
But using signs in conjunction with something else,
something more like
that would maybe be considered like more of a total communication,
signed exact English, or like some type of like single signs for for whatever reason. Using iPads or not, using things that are lower tech, like communication
picture books.
Everything like that. And so that is where I have found kind of a new interest, and
a bit of a niche.
By no means am I an expert.
No, but there is like, I think that you can kind of have a bent to your practice, and like a specialized interest in an area, and like have some more specific training in that area.
Well, you and I we both just did this, where we went and sought out some type of advanced training in our own areas of interest. I just went to the first like level of like pod training, which is pragmatically organized dynamic display. It's a language. It's a type of communication system. And so just sought out advanced training that. However,
I am currently doing my practicum for Orton Gillingham, which is a literacy approach. So I am kind of finding I again hesitate to call myself a specialist because I'm still learning, but this is my area of interest, I guess, or like, I would say I maybe know more about literacy, or am beginning to know more about literacy than like your average SLP, because I've sought out specialized training in it. So reading and writing is kind of becoming my niche. Jam. Absolutely my jam. Love it.
It's been really fun too, to combine those two. We have been recently going on an adventure of literacy and AAC together. So
I keep thinking of the like, is it Power Rangers, or what's the one where they like put their rings together, and it's like
it's something,
the explosion
anime.
of
it's an anime, I think. But regardless, we're putting our rings together, our sapphire rings together.
Our sapphire rings, to power up. I love it. But so there's a lot of that. Some people have just more specialized training because of either like where they work, or just because of something that like really kind of speaks to them and calls to them. So, but I would say a lot of SLPs do a lot.
Oh my goodness.
Because like even us, we have our special interests that we've touched on, but you and I both do motor speech, articulation, language, autism, Down syndrome, intellectual disabilities.
Yeah. We work
reading and writing, AAC. Like we have a very diverse caseload too. And so even if you kind of specialize, CogCom, even if you kind of specialize in an area, you still wind up being a generalist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which is kind of fun. It's just actually extremely fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's actually quite enjoyable according to us too. So we're excited for you guys to come on this adventure with us, because there's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn in this field, and we're still learning.
And much to talk about.
Oh, so much.
Much to think about, much to discuss.
Much to tell you about.
Much to tell you about, yeah. So yeah, I think with that, that's probably a pretty good place to wrap up our first episode.
Absolutely.
Well, great. Well, this has been fun, and I hope that you guys want to join us again for our next episode, which will be, should we give a sneak peek?
Absolutely.
We're going to jump right into scams, swindles, and pseudoscience, and we are going to talk about the telepathy tapes. If you have not heard of the telepathy tapes, listen to our next episode, and we'll tell you all about it. We hope that you all feel a little less lost thinking about speech pathology and what exactly it is that we are doing here. But as always, there's a lot to uncover, so we are excited to go on that journey with all of you. Follow us on Instagram at tellmeaboutit.slp and be on the lookout for more episodes in the future.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Bye!